Parshas Mishpatim, following the Aseret Hadibros, following Matan Torah, begins immediately with many halachas and many varied areas of halacha, specifically halachas that are relevant ben adam lechaveri, between man and his fellow man. Interestingly enough, the Torah begins Parshas Mishpatim with the halachas, with the laws of Eved Ivri. What's an Eved Ivri? We know that halachas of being a servant, of being a slave, is spread out throughout the whole Torah, because there's a situation where a Jew serves another Jew, as it is in our parsha. There's a situation where a Jew serves a non-Jew, which is in a different parsha. There's a situation where a non-Jew is a slave to a Jew. All these situations are different. Each one has its own specific rules and regulations. And then there's a situation where a woman is sold as a slave. A Jewess is sold to a Jew, or a Jewess is sold to a non-Jew, and etc. But our parsha specifically discusses a situation where one Jew becomes a servant, becomes a slave of another Jew, Eved, Ivri, by a Jew. And as Rashi brings from the Gemara in Kedushin, infers from the context of our parsha that we're talking about a specific situation. We're talking about a situation where one has been caught stealing. He doesn't have the money to pay back. He already spent the money. And the court sells him into slavery by another Jew. His master is a Jew. And that money is used to pay back the one who has stolen from. Okay, what happens when that occurs? Is he a slave forever? No, of course not. The Torah specifically says in the second pasuk, "Ki sikna eved ivri," when you will purchase a Jewish slave, sheish shanim yavod, he shall work for 6 years. And the 7th year he shall go free. So he only works for 6 years. He goes free in the 7th year. This is what's known in the words of Chazal. This is as known as Yitzia or Geula B'Sheish, with the 6-year system of freedom. The 6-year system of freedom means that he can only work for 6 years. He goes free in the 7th year. Seems interesting that the Shem Shmuel points out that it's called, in the words of Chazal, the leaving of the B'Sheish in the 6th year. Why is it called the 6-year Exodus? It should be called the 7-year Exodus. It's the 7th year that frees him, not the 6th year. Furthermore, we know, says the Shem Shmuel, and the Gemara proves this, that although specifically our parsha is discussing a situation where one is sold into slavery because of a robbery, because he has stolen, but there's another situation where a person can become a Jewish slave. How is that? A person finds himself in dire financial straits. He cannot make a living. He's not making it work. And he decides, in order to get a little bit of income and to put away a little bit of money, he sells himself into slavery. In this situation, the same halacha applies. He works for 6 years. The 7th year he goes free. The price is obviously set according to the wages that a man would generally generate over 6 years. Okay. Chazal, in several places, look negatively upon a person who is a slave to another Jew. Now we understand very clearly in the case of our parsha, where he was caught stealing, why there's a negative association to such slavery. He was sold into slavery only because of a sin, which he should not have done in the first place. But what about a person who just finds himself in a difficult situation and he sells himself into slavery? He sells himself to another Jew, not forever, for 6 years. He'll work for 6 years, makes a little bit of money, invests it on the side, comes out the 7th year, and he can be financially stable, financially comfortable. Why is that a negative thing? Says the Gemara, because the pasuk says, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avodim. Pasuk says that because you are to me avodim, servants or slaves, you should serve me. Ki li b'nei Yisrael avodim. A Jew should realize that he serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person sells himself into slavery by another Jew, he's violating that feeling of being a slave, of being a servant to Hashem. You should not be serving people, you should be serving me. Yes, you can work, you can have a partnership, you can even be an employee, but to be a servant, a slave of another Jewish master is a violation of being a slave, of being clearly and purely a slave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's why even when a person sells himself into slavery because of a financial burden, it's also looked upon negatively. It works, the halacha is there, the Torah allows it, but it's not ideal and it's not recommended. Says the Shem Shmuel, esoterically, the numbers 6 and 7, the number 6 symbolizes the physical world, and the number 7 symbolizes the spiritual world, or more correctly, the spiritual me, the real identity which is ingrained in my my substantial me, my real me, my neshama. That's the 7. And it's understood that the 6 symbolizes when a person is in a physical, constrained place. That place is always surrounded by 6 sides: front, back, right, left, top, and bottom. So the 6 symbolizes the physical material world. And the 7th is the me, is the point, is the nekuda, which is the Shem Shmuel calls the nekuda hapnimis of the Jew, which is the real me, which is not constrained and not confined by the physical limitations that physical place give a person. So a person, if he would be completely spiritual, completely a neshama, that spiritual neshama realizes very clearly that the person is a servant of Hashem and not a servant of people, and would never ever sell himself into slavery. But a person's neshama is placed inside a guf, inside a body, and the body lives in this world. And the person the complete person, the body and the soul, lives among a physical world, within a physical world. And he sometimes forgets. He forgets that he belongs to Hashem. He forgets that he belongs only as a servant of Hashem. And he starts thinking about, perhaps I could serve another person. Says the Torah, for 6 years, if you do that, you serve a person only for 6 years. The 7th year, he goes free. Another example, says the Shem Shmuel, Shabbos, 6 days a week we work, we involve ourselves in the material world around us, and on the 7th day we focus on our spiritual development and our spiritual side of ourselves. So therefore, the 6 years that we're working, and the 7th year we go free. A person cannot be more than 6 years constrained under slavery under another person. But it's more than that, says the Shem Shmuel. In fact, the 6 years is not just time passing by. A person should be involved during those 6 years in introspection. How did I come to this point that I'm now a slave of another person? And by working on himself and ingraining in himself the idea that he should not have been in the situation of selling himself into slavery to another person, that's actually what allows him to become free after those 6 years during the 7th year. He returns to his inner neshama, he returns and he reconnects with his inner self and his inner neshama. That's why, says the Shem Shmuel, Chazal, the Gemara and the Chazal, they called this system of exodus not the 7th year, but the 6-year exodus. It's a process of 6 years. Today, in our time, we don't have, for several reasons, practical reasons and other reasons, we don't have the system of slavery, not Jew by Jew, not Jew by non-Jew, not non-Jew by Jew. We don't sell ourselves into slavery. But the lesson that evolves, the lesson that a person should realize, that he should never become a slave, not to another person, not to our material instincts, not to our society around us. Sometimes we do things just because that's what people do and everybody's doing it. I don't want to be different. I don't want to be looked at as being strange. But a person should realize that the only being that he can be a servant to, really his real inner self, should be a servant only to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only to Hashem. Good Shabbos. Please don't forget to subscribe. You'll get the video every week by subscribing. Put a like. Thank you very much. Good Shabbos.